Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with my next Boruto anime review. This one's going to be for episode 218, which is called Partners. So, another big, pretty high budget episode, I guess. While I suppose the content that we got didn't maybe give opportunity for like the really crazy animation, we at least got a little bit of it, and it still was a high quality animated episode, which it needed to be, because this one was more focusing, I suppose, on the emotions about surrounding what happened, whereas the last episode was all about the action of what was happening. So, massively eventful episode here, where, just listing it off, we got the death of Isshiki, the return of Borushiki, Momoshiki, the death of Kurama, that big emotional scene, and then just a lot of the transition stuff like in between. Lots happened in this one, and after, I suppose, next week's episode, it looks like we're going into some anime original content, but it should be good, and it's probably one of the best spots that they actually have to put in this sort of content, because the arc that follows this in the manga has been mainly set up. This is your opportunity to have a little bit of a break, because they've been, for the most part in the anime for the last while, doing manga or manga setup arcs for quite a while now. And we're so close, and I think if they did start to do more, they'll catch up very quickly. I think a lot does depend on when the manga finally gets around to doing some sort of a time skip, and that will really give us a sense for like, this is the full direction of the anime. But let's go deeper into this episode. So obviously, to start off, we got the cliffhanger ending of the last episode. Kawaki shows himself in front of Isshiki. He doesn't want Naruto to die. That's why he broke cover here, even though Isshiki only has like seconds left at this point. So he tries to defend himself with some fire style ninjutsu, which is kind of cool, but Isshiki just blows straight through it, grabs Kawaki, and seemingly implants him with the karma mark. The big sort of twist reveal after all of Ishiki's gloating is, of course, that he's been tricked by a shadow clone. Something we didn't know Kawaki could do, but it makes sense that Kawaki, who cares so much about Naruto, would of course attempt to do Naruto's signature jutsu, and so this one shadow clone succeeds. So you can't implant the karma mark on someone through a shadow clone, so the shadow clone is revealed, just the karma fades away, Kawaki reveals himself, the shadow clone pops, and at this point Isshiki had sort of just accepted his death, because I'll be reborn later, so fine, this body can crumble away. So he's on the ground, and Kawaki finishes him off by just jumping on him and finishing the, turning him to dust situation. This is the confirmed, full-on, absolute death of Isshiki. There doesn't seem to be any twist. The, I suppose, direct confirmation of that is the fact that, Borushiki, Momoshiki does come out, so, and he says, his life has been completely extinguished, and if you can't trust another Otsutsuki, potentially a more notable one, potentially with Momoshiki, who can you trust? So, that is good to sort of get that direct confirmation from one of the other kind of villain characters that this is 100% for sure the full-on death of this character. There's no twist, there's no other karma mark, he is gone. Very fitting, and I thought they did this very well. Adapted, very, very accurately from the manga here. No changes really at all. But a important character moment that I think it is Kawaki who is the one to defeat him full on in the end by tricking him, and then him being the one to make him full on crumble to dust. Fitting that, Kawaki steps out to save his new father figure by taking out his old father figure. Very, very fitting. This leads us into, we of course turn our attention to Naruto, who's on the ground and isn't moving too well. He's still alive, but we haven't really addressed the whole this jutsu requires your life situation, or technique requires your life. So we turn our attention to that right as, out of nowhere, Boruto stabs Sasuke in the Rinnegan eye. It is of course revealed that this is the sort of Boruto Momoshiki combined form, Borushiki as everyone calls it, and this is the plan for Momoshiki. Stop their easy access to space-time ninjutsu to try and sort of, win the fight here when everyone is completely out on their feet. Now, the problem here is that Borushiki is also in a kind of awkward situation because of how he can actually come out. We get the full-on explanation of that at this stage, which is basically that Momoshiki takes control of Boruto's body when Boruto expends too much of his chakra. That way he doesn't have enough power to hold back the sort of latent, Momoshiki inside him. So that allows Momoshiki to take over. But if Boruto regains that chakra over that level, it obviously means that Boruto can take over again. So it means Momoshiki is forced to fight in a very specific way where he doesn't expend a lot of chakra, and it also means he can't use his jutsu absorption ability either, because that will result in Boruto's chakra level going up. Sasuke cleverly figures this out, even though he's down the Rinnegan. Like, he is probably the most active combatant on the field at this point, because Kawaki can still do a little bit, but of course he's completely outmatched by Boruto in this form. But Sasuke is the threat because the Mangekyo Sharingan still has a lot of power, and Sasuke is still very, very experienced and skilled. This is the setup going into this fight that Sasuke feels he's the one who has to take down Boruto in this form. So they figure this out that, he's not absorbing jutsu, so this is what we have to do. The other twist on this is that we get the reveal that, with Isshiki gone, and now Kawaki with absolutely no karma mark, that means there's no sacrifice for the Ten-Tail. So the Otsutsuki plan for the planet is gone, because otherwise he'd have to sacrifice himself, and then there'd be no one to actually consume the fruit in the end. So what's the situation? Momoshiki does confirm to us that that is not the case. He checks on Kawaki and determines that Kawaki, the extraction from the karma that he did have, completed enough to where Kawaki's body is now effectively like 80% Otsutsuki. Now, this is an interesting kind of twist on it from before. We didn't quite get this exact sense that the extraction process isn't just this thing that happens and then if it doesn't complete, it just fades away completely. It still fundamentally was changing both Kawaki and Boruto's body, where Kawaki is now part Otsutsuki. That's a key twist in this because it confirms that Kawaki, and I suppose also Boruto, can be used as food for the Ten-Tails to turn into the Divine Tree to make a chakra fruit. So this is why Momoshiki is fighting so hard in this situation, and it's what turns the tide of the battle, because Kawaki realizes this, that, I'm the only food source, so if I threaten myself, if I set myself on fire, he will be forced to absorb the fire, and that will bring Boruto out, which is exactly what happens. The brief Boruto in this form versus Kawaki fight was our big bit of sort of like super high quality animation. Really liked the kind of technical stuff with the taijutsu and the crazy flips, just highlighting that Momoshiki sort of piloting Boruto's body is showing the level that I suppose Boruto could be at its maximum, and it's just too much for Kawaki, who gets stabbed in the back. But he does use the fire style jutsu to set himself on fire. Momoshiki absorbs it, and we get this sort of inner fight between Momoshiki and Boruto, which effectively results in Boruto struggling to take control. He snaps his horn off, and this is what allows him to fully take control once again. Collapses to the ground, and for the most part it seems like this is everything over. We get a nice moment, at least for Boruto and Kawaki, that the fight is over, that, finally Kawaki returns the favor to Boruto and calls him brother, like Boruto has before. So that's really nice. But then we turn our attention to Naruto, because again, we have not addressed the whole idea that Baryon mode was meant to kill Naruto. It's meant to be a sacrificial jutsu. What's going on there? He hasn't moved in a while. We have to address that. So we go into sort of the inner mind space of Naruto, where he talks to Kurama. And this is where we got our big sort of expansion, improvement from the manga to the anime. This scene, the farewell between Naruto and Kurama, was executed so much better here in the anime than it was in the manga. It was a rather brief scene in the manga, only given like maybe 10-ish pages, and they changed it here a bit. They changed some of the dialogue, they added in a lot extra, and then just in general, it benefited from having emotional music, strong voice acting performances from Naruto and Kurama, and some slight changes to dialogue, as well as flashback sequences to get across their kind of legacy together, the history of these characters. And that's what really came across here, is that them bringing up, to some degree, the obvious in this moment helps so much. That Naruto saying, like, you've been with me since birth. That, you know, Naruto makes the point of like, oh, I can go relatively okay now, knowing that things are going to be okay for Boruto and Kawaki, and they're like brothers now. And they make the comparison of like, oh, it's like you and Sasuke. But then Naruto makes the point of like, we're almost, you and me, Kurama, are almost closer than brothers, because you've been with me since like moments after I was born. And we've been together this whole time. Like, our lives coincide together. And, you know, Kurama notes that Naruto is the one who sort of changed him, got rid of all of his hatred, and that's how they became friends. We, you know, as we go into like the ending sequence, we do get the sort of flashbacks to all the kind of key moments of development and growth across the entire series, of the moments where, you know, Kurama was a real sort of threat and seemed like a villain almost, to the gradual friendship process, going into the ninja war at the end, and, you know, to where we are now. And it was just really well done to get across the full emotion of this situation, that this is a relationship that has been there since Naruto episode 1. This has been a huge part of like this. Naruto being a Jinchuriki is what has sort of created the series, created the character. This dynamic between these two, and it being a friendship now, is such an important arc throughout Naruto and Naruto Shippuden, that this partnership, like the episode is called, Partners, coming to an end here is hugely, hugely impactful. And I think the emotion of this helped to get across the finality of this, that the reveal ultimately is that Kurama says, I never directly said that your life would be expended in this. I never lied to you, and that, yes, it would take something away, and what is taking away is me. So the reveal is that Baryon mode expends Kurama to do it. Which ultimately sort of makes sense, that the downside of the Baryon mode was that it basically sort of destroyed chakra. And so they explain that Kurama, as a chakra beast, was literally destroying himself to make this happen. And so in these final moments, this explanation comes out. Naruto is going to survive. Kurama is going to be the one that goes away. Now, they get into a few of the technical details here of like, this is not going to be considered a tailed beast extraction. So Naruto doesn't have to worry about potentially dying from, you know, losing the Jinchuriki connection, because what's going to happen here is literally Kurama's chakra just fades away. The lingering effects of Baryon mode, I suppose, just makes Kurama disappear, rather than it being like forcibly extracted out of someone's body and the connection being broken violently. This is just that energy fading away. So there's a few things that happen here. We get the warning, of course, like, you won't be, you know, this like superhuman strength character anymore. If you basically fight the way you have fought up to now, like nothing has changed, you'll be joining me sooner rather than later. And that's another thing that this episode got across. Just the idea of what did we lose in this episode. Obviously, Isshiki died, key point. But Sasuke lost the Rinnegan, and Naruto lost Kurama. Both characters, both of our two most powerful characters in the franchise, on the hero side of things, I guess, lost their key ability. That is the top level of their kind of abilities and techniques. They are much more now in line with the other characters, whereas they've always been, to a degree, our get out of jail free card, because they've been a level above everyone else. They are now down in a more normal range. Now, there's again the technical stuff of like, okay, this is why Naruto survived, Kurama is gone. Now, how does this relate to the whole idea of tail beasts, and when they are killed, they resurrect themselves? They basically reincarnate. That's what happened previously. I think the main example we have of a tail beast being killed is was it Rin, the other member of Kakashi and Obito's team, also had a tail beast inside her, and when she was killed, the beast inside her was killed as well, but it resurrected. And that's I think where we learned about the whole idea that you can't like truly kill one of the tail beasts, that they'll always be reborn because they are made of energy. But this creates a little bit more of a finality to it, because this ability was literally sort of destroying energy. That's the way it was explained. So it feels very final, and while sure, theoretically, they could absolutely down the road make the decision to be like, okay, here is the resurrection of Kurama. It takes like a few years or whatever, but he will return different and, stuff like that. But you can have that be a big moment later on in the series if you absolutely want to. But for now, it is fully final. Everything that they did, having the flashback sequences over the credits, the hugely emotional moment of like Naruto calling out to Kurama as he faded away, and Kurama just saying, until the point at which you do join me, Naruto, be well, as their kind of final moment. Very, very, very powerful, for sure. Now, the question obviously is, and I haven't really addressed this in the manga, they haven't got into the technical details of where exactly are Sasuke and Naruto's level post this. Hopefully the anime does a better job. Because Naruto technically still has some tail beast chakra inside him, because he does have a fraction of parts of the other tail beasts within him. And that's why, like, in the finale of, like, Shippuden and stuff like that, he was able to do all those kind of combo moves that was, like, Rasengans enhanced with the power of, like, each specific tail beast. And that continued to this point, because the idea was that, like, Naruto's sort of inner mind thing was sort of a convergence point for all of the tail beasts where they could communicate. And that was kept open throughout the rest of the series. So is the loss of Naruto sort of like with a full tail beast, Jinchuriki, does that lose the other ones as well? Or does he still have that ability? Because Naruto should still be quite strong, because one, he's an Uzumaki, so he has a huge chakra kind of reservoir anyway. And we've learned, I suppose, him as an adult, he actually knows a lot of the standard jutsus and different styles that we mainly never saw him really do much in Shippuden and stuff like that. So he should still be able to do a lot of his moveset. He should still be somewhat, durable. But of course he loses sort of that like healing factor. Like he's more in line with Sasuke now, where he's basically as durable as Sasuke now is, because he previously had that sort of healing factor due to Kurama's chakra. So, there's an explanation that's needed here, in that it's definitely just the depowering of these characters, more down to the point where it now feels like the new generation, Boruto and his generation, can actually theoretically surpass these two characters, which are the best of the older generation. And I think that's part of the aim of this, is that like when we go into a time skip and come out of it, and we have 16, 18-year-old, Boruto, Sarada, and everyone, they now have a higher ceiling than other characters, theoretically. And the problem is, like, we need to get there. There's a lot of explanation that still needs to come out for all of the characters and their power sets, but it's definitely brought the Naruto and Sasuke down in line to where, yeah, these characters could surpass them now. So that's probably the main important thing coming out of this. And so the final scene of the episode is Naruto waking up. Kurama disappears, Naruto wakes up, Boruto's holding his hand, and it's like, yeah, Naruto has survived, but he's lost a lifetime sort of friend in the process. So, just really, really fantastic episode. And it looks like next week we're going to resolve the kind of rest of this kind of arc, the sort of epilogue to this arc. And then it looks like we're going into anime original episodes, which, from what I've heard, is that one of the episode titles for at least one of the upcoming episodes is something about tuning exams. So it looks like we're going to get a redo of tuning exams. What characters are going to be involved and whatnot, I don't actually know. But that actually seems relatively interesting, in that we need a bit of a training arc, definitely, to already improve the characters, which is something the manga arc kind of plays with but never really committed to. So the anime having a bit more time now to play with should help that. So that's going to be actually quite exciting. That should bring in, Shinki from the Sand Village, the other members of his team, and maybe introduce some other characters that we haven't, been with for quite a while in the series. But yeah, I think that's everything I want to talk about here. Just, last two episodes, this one and the previous one, have been incredible. Some of the best in the entire series. And yeah, it just sets things up really, really nicely. With Boruto, I do just want to mention before I kind of end the video, Jogon, still a mystery, still needs to be resolved. Of course, it's mainly a thing only really in the anime, but the anime is making itself more and more clear to be the sort of kind of final kind of canon source in a way. It's telling the full story. So, Jogon is definitely something we're waiting to see come into play, in that I think everyone has predicted at this point that it should be something that counters Otsutsuki's sort of possession. It should have that level of power to help Boruto suppress Momoshiki if needed. But, that's been the video. In the comments, let me know what your thoughts were on this episode. But that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.